Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Are Crotchety Old Man,
And a woman.
the show, the podcast for you, with you, and even sometimes about you. We are starting our season 2, episode 1, and it is New Year's. And we are going to go over our new format in a little bit, but wanted to speak to everyone. How was your Thanksgiving? Wow, it was a rough night last night. How was your New Year's, Abigail?
It was pretty fun, Arden. We were together, weren't we?
It was. We were really two old farts, but it was pretty fun. Abigail and I went to a bar last night. We're not going to give the name of the bar because we don't want to embarrass ourselves in case you were there. And we had a few too many drinks. And then someone offered me a bear claw. That was pretty good. No, it wasn't.
A bear claw?
Yeah, it was that nasty seltzer drink thing. You
I
know,
thought
like,
that was a white claw.
oh, I'm an idiot. I'm telling you, I think I'm still hungover. A white claw is it? But who made that stuff? I mean, it's gross.
I don't know. I had my favorite cranberry and vodka.
Nice.
But we are pretty lame. We went out early and we checked out early. So why don't you tell them what time we left?
Well, first we did one shot each. That was kind of fun. Just vodka, nothing crazy. And we were Ubering at 5:15. We didn't even stay for dinner. We had like 4 drinks each. We did a shot and then we went home. And then we had leftover pizza. that was, but I couldn't even stay awake to see the ball drop. I fell asleep on Abigail's couch. It was a rough one. So we are starting our new format, and thank you to everyone in the audience who's given us feedback. As you can tell, no singing. We might be ending that unless there's a huge demand for the intro. So we're going to try to find different types of music here and there, all instrumental. If you know anyone who wants to get famous quick, feel free. We might make them stars, and then they could do the music for us. But we think we're going to end me singing because it is just that bad. What other things are we going to be doing?
It wasn't bad. It was just a little odd. A little odd.
A little odd and not very good. You can say I can't sing.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah. So we're also going to be we're things people wanted. They wanted us to be funnier. They wanted us to be happier. That was a weird one. Even Jerome from Washington D.C. Happy New Year's, Jerome. They said we need to be a little more positive and upbeat, if that makes sense. And do you think we could do that?
I don't know, but we're gonna try.
We are. So today we're just going to start out on something light. Abigail worked really hard yesterday, and well, except when she was drinking, and today, coming up with lists of stories from last year. I don't know a lot of the stories. I only know a few of them, so she's gonna just kind of go over them, and we're gonna hopefully see where it goes. So, Abigail, whenever you're ready, take on over.
Okay. So I follow the news pretty closely. But there's just little stories that a lot of people never hear about, but that are very, very funny or interesting. And Arden and I was talking about it earlier today about the woman in the MRI room. Why don't you tell me about
Okay,
that?
so this story, I saw it on Reuters, and I only saw a headline. And a woman actually went into an MRI, and for some reason, the electrical pulses. She was armed. She actually had a concealed carry permit, and she took her handgun into the MRI for some reason, and the gun accidentally went off and shot her in the butt. So I'm not going to mention the woman's name, obviously, because that would be bad. But it was a Reuters story, and so she had She literally shot herself in the ass. Not a very bright lady.
Not bright at all. I mean, she could have killed the other people in the room.
Okay, that is true. That is true. But she did get it in the end. But all right. What else do we got going on? We got lots of stories. Lots of stories.
There was a guy apparently from Formula One racing named Valtteri Bottas.
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 Not buttocks.
No.
Okay.
But maybe.
Maybe.
Because he essentially did a nude calendar.
Uh-huh.
Was it for charity or something?
I believe it was to raise money for charity, yes.
But was he 100% nude?
I don't know. I was thinking about getting you that for next year's Christmas gift. 2025. But oh Jesus, I can't even remember the guy's name. But he was a race car driver, and he raised $150,000 for charity of just pictures of himself. Yeah, I think if I sold pictures of myself, I would have a lot of people demanding their money back pretty quickly.
Oh man.
What else?
So I think we can come back to strange ones, but let's talk a little bit about the NFL.
Your favorite topic.
Right. This was an interesting year. Overall, Tom Brady retired finally.
The GOAT.
After 20 years. And I must say, he doesn't look good lately. He's very thin, and I guess I'm a little concerned, but obviously he's fine. The guy is probably the most fit person in the world.
Compared to me. I'm not going to complain how he looks. Oh, that Tom Brady, he looks like shit. I mean, he looks at me, he goes, seriously, dude?
Yeah. And there were several stories about the NFL, but a couple that stands out is what happened to the poor Jets.
Oh, yeah, from the beginning.
I mean, from the beginning, Aaron Rodgers doesn't even get to throw a pass.
And he got an owie.
Before he got an owie. Yeah.
And for the whole season.
Out for the whole season. Was thinking about coming back if the Jets had pulled it around during the season, but they didn't. So that was kind of a shocker to the whole NFL.
Do we know how long his contract is?
No.
Okay, so I didn't know if it was like 1 year or more.
But if you look at the schedule of the games, they put the Jets in premier slots, anticipating it would be Aaron Rodgers, and all that went out the window within the first 3 or 4 plays of the game.
Yeah, and my brother, who's a huge Jet fan, was very disappointed about that. So yeah, it sucks. I mean, it's like anything that can happen to the Jets happens to the Jets.
And recently, of course, there's Taylor Swift being at the games, being a distraction. Last night's game, I think they only showed her twice, so I felt like they restrained from it, but I just don't see the need in even showing her.
Well, I mean, it did push the NFL narrative for a while, though. So I can understand the NFL. I mean, their ratings did go up. What was it, like 20%? Rating push because it wasn't just the Chiefs. It was the fact that it was Taylor Swift or something like that.
Yeah. And, speaking of Taylor Swift, I mean, she had a record, it has to be a record concert tour for her Eras tour. And,
Person of the year.
As I told you, I think she readily deserved Person of the Year.
Yeah. So. But wasn't there something, I don't know. Sorry. I was trying to think of anything with Taylor Swift. I don't know anything about her, so I don't know anything about that.
One thing I read is the USA Today, Gannett, I believe, is the home or the main holder of USA Today News. They actually put out an ad for somebody to follow Taylor Swift and the Eras tour. And hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And they ended up choosing a young guy, a 30-year-old male. Okay. And apparently a lot of people were up in arms because they felt it should have been a woman that can truly relate to a woman who writes songs about women. And, there was a lot of outrage there.
But maybe he identifies as something else.
I think you're right, Arden.
Yeah, maybe he identifies as a Swiftie, so maybe that helps.
Well, I think that may be the case.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, she's all over the place. Woman of the year. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me, person of the year. Then with the whole NFL endorsements and her concerts. Yeah, she's huge. so, um, any more fun sports stories or anything like that?
I mean, I don't know about fun, but that WNBA girl, what was her name?
Oh,
Brittany?
Brittany Griner.
Yeah,
Yeah, forgot
she
about
got in
that.
hot water
Hot
with
water.
with
She was
China, right? Or Russia?
it was Russia. She actually
Russia.
was. She was caught. She was caught actually with. I don't know if it was cocaine. No, it was marijuana. She had marijuana, and she was sent to jail. And hard labor in jail. And there was a President Biden actually traded this. He was a arms dealer, a Russian arms dealer, like the biggest one in the world, and they traded. Wow, it's like an NBA trade. Actually, traded an arms dealer for Brittany Griner and a player to be named later. But yeah, so that was a. I don't know. We're gonna find out if that actually, if it comes true. See if it actually is a good deal for both sides.
Right, and I do think that she expressed gratitude
She did.
to the United States
She
for
did.
getting her out of a situation. But there were many other sports headlines, but
Yeah.
I think we can move back into the odd ones, the
Oh,
odd stories.
sort of odd, real quick, and I apologize.
That's fine.
Not really for Jerome, but for DC. As of yesterday, it's now official that the USFL and the XFL merged. And as our listeners probably know, I am a nerd that follows it. So we're hoping, and it looks like the DC Defenders will have a team still. Still surprised though. So that's my go-to since the Commanders really suck.
You know what happened in Colorado, Arden?
A lot.
A lot happens in
A
Colorado.
lot happens in
Well,
Colorado.
I've seen stories such as this before, but it's still shocking.
Okay.
A Colorado funeral home was busted for maintaining or keeping over 200 decaying bodies within their facility.
Ew.
And their concept of this funeral home was, quote, return to nature.
Oh,
So
I did
they
see
were
that.
able, the law allows that as long as they are refrigerated
Mhm.
and maintained refrigerated until they're put into the ground
Right.
without a casket,
Okay.
without
Okay.
just
Right.
returning to nature essentially.
Well, we are biodegradable
That's right.
and we are green.
But this place apparently didn't have enough refrigerators, I guess,
Oh,
because they had over 200 decaying bodies within their
that's
facility.
nasty.
Isn't that disgusting?
Ew. Like, can you imagine the flies and everyone? Like, oh, that's gross. Oh, see, I thought. See, I did hear something about the whole like giving back to the earth, where people were actually volunteering to do that. That they would actually, instead of having a funeral, their bodies would be. I think they actually like they would actually be buried with no casket, no nothing, and give back to the earth. I actually thought about doing that once. Not my body though. Like if I was uh, to be what is it when you're turned to ashes? Why is my brain not working? I need to eat more fish. And so I was going to have my ashes spread and have a tree planted on top of me. That was kind of an odd idea. Anyway, sorry, getting weird, a little morbid.
Well, one of the big stories from the year included the implosion of that submersible back in the summertime.
Oh yeah, that was
I mean,
sad.
it got blanketed coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, saturation. At the end of the day, though, you have to question why these wealthy people went into that small tin can to go down to the bottom of the ocean. What do you think, Arden?
Now, see, I could do that. I mean, people do that a lot. All the oceanographers, and they get into those really tiny submersibles. So I don't have a problem with that. But like, it actually had like violations, for safety and things along those lines. And these were not just wealthy people. I mean, these were uber wealthy people that you would have thought someone would have done, some due diligence. I mean, it was a guy, it was one man and his son and another guy. Like that, Yeah, I couldn't imagine being crushed to death like that.
All I can say is they did return to nature.
They did, and they never were. They didn't find the bodies, did they? I think they.
No.
I think they pulled up some of the wreckage, but didn't find any of the bodies.
No, I don't think so. And I don't think they're going to. So I found an article in about Minnesota where poop came raining down onto cars,
Nice.
specifically at a drive-through at a Starbucks.
Did it come from a plane?
That's what they suspect.
Okay.
Because there's really no other source.
Ah.
It wasn't bird poop.
Wasn't a pterodactyl?
No.
Okay.
But basically, the woman was getting her coffee, and it was being handed over to her, and this big splatter of poop all came raining down on her car. And all she could say was she was glad her daughter wasn't, didn't have the window down. And
Oh God! Can you imagine walking your dog and a big pile of shit hits you in the head?
and
Ew.
they somewhat traced it back to a Delta flight.
Oh, so it could have been a plane. Could have.
It had to have been on.
Eh?
If you saw the pictures, it was like snow, but it was poop.
Oh, that's so disgusting. Ew. I mean, a large flock of giant birds pooping on you. I mean, like now. Here's a. Have you ever been pooped on by a bird?
Actually, not.
Okay, I had one. It hit me right in the shoulder, and I'm like, not easy to get out. It was disgusting, and I was actually in a shirt for my job, so I had to go back into the office, and I had a big white goober on my shoulder, and I had to like sit there in the bathroom and try to wash it off. It was disgusting. It was gross.
I had a coworker that had happened to him when he was about to get into the cab to go catch a flight, and in his case, it hit his head and his shirt, and so we had to run it back into the conference area and try to get cleaned up. But I'm glad it hasn't happened to me. But the odds of it happening have to be fairly high.
Yeah, now, going bald as I am, I now wear hats a lot more. Just in case, because it's an easy target. If you're a pigeon, you're looking for the bald guy. You're not looking for some skinny girl. You want to hit the bald guy, and they all like high feather each other. Hey, good job. Sorry, I'm digressing again.
Another funny story was, I'll let you spell it out, but essentially, someone stole a golden throne.
Oh yeah, so they're in England. These two criminals were arrested for stealing a $6 million gold toilet from a palace. And think about that. So who actually has a gold toilet? And these thieves actually knew where it was and actually got caught. Yeah, you don't think anyone would miss or see two guys walking around with a giant gold toilet? Not exactly very light, but yeah. Kind of awesome.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't Trump have a golden toilet?
I think Donald Trump did have one.
He did.
I think so.
It
I think
exists.
Elvis had one too.
Yeah, but they were just probably covered.
Gold-plated?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Gold-plated, right.
When you have that kind of money, why not
$600 million. The other thing I
$600
question is how
million.
it had to have been heavy.
Yeah,
How did they do it?
right. I mean, porcelain is definitely lighter than gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why they needed two of them. I mean, literally took a number two. But I'm bumped.
All right. Well, how about the super semen donor?
Oh, tell me about that one.
Well,
slightly
essentially,
remember it.
the Dutch caught on to this guy that was a semen donor that apparently, a lot of children were fathered by him.
Wasn't it like 50 or 60? That was like 100 or something like that.
Right. And they had to tell this guy he couldn't do it anymore.
Right, because they didn't know after a while, like who was who. Like the entire towns were filled with his kids. Like that's crazy. So instead of like arresting him or anything, he's like banned. He's no longer allowed to make a deposit anymore.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's just odd. Maybe I don't know.
But that's not his fault. It's the company, the fertility clinic running it. They're the ones that should have put a stop to that.
Well, here's the scary part. What happens in the next 20 years? If all of those kids live, what if they all go to the same high school? They might have some problems. The prom is going to be a little weird.
there was also, there was a Law and Order episode about this too. So
Oh, okay.
it's not like it hasn't been seen before, but again,
Hundreds of kids.
hundreds of
Hundreds.
kids, hundreds of kids.
Who's
So,
the like NBA player or football player has like got like 10 kids with like all different parents?
oh
Like, oh, we're gonna have to find that out. If you
yeah,
know who that is, please let us know. I know there's the one guy on Fox, that the big wrestler Tyrus. He's got like 7 kids with 5 different wives, but so it does happen, but not 100.
well, another one that we got to look back upon is that the government seems to now be acknowledging that there is alien life out there.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? But it was very quietly, like they had the guys come in and testify on the Senate hearings, and then there was that, and then like right after there was that little like mummy from Mexico. Like, notice how we don't talk about that anymore. Like, I'm now everyone knows who listens to this knows I am a nerd when it comes to this stuff. I think it's real. I think maybe the mummy probably wasn't real, but I do think that this was real because it's just too convenient. Like how all of a sudden just stopped. They had the testimony of the 2 guys and then nothing. I mean, yes, there were some other news events going on in the world lately that were slightly more important, but I don't know. Aliens, I believe in them.
Well, apparently, as I said, it was astonishing to me that the US government seems to be acknowledging their existence. So we will have to stay tuned to that in 2024.
Yeah, and do you remember the show The X-Files?
Yes, but
I
I didn't watch it, but yes.
and there's supposedly going to be a remake of The X-Files, but guess what channel has it? Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
Disney and The X-Files, like, never mind. There's a lot of bad jokes in there. And going with that, remember there was the going in unique directions in Disney. Wasn't there an alcohol company that was having some problems?
Oh, Bud Light.
Bud Light had a few problems. That was a huge, and it still affects them today. And last night, in fact, I actually had my first Modelo beer before I was eating drinking the white claw. But anyway, yeah. So interesting how like they've turned though. So you had the whole Dylan Mulvaney issue and how everyone was protesting, and you had Kid Rock out there with his AK-47 shooting all of the beer cans. But then a few months later, the same guy, you have the same Bud Light with Kid Rock. He's drinking it at a UFC event because now they are the official sponsor of UFC. It doesn't get any ultra conservative, more ultra conservative than UFC fighting, and they sign. So it's almost like fake outrage at this point.
Well, in many of the cases where they boycott stuff, it's simply something that's blown out of total proportion.
Right.
And most people bounce back.
And it's so easy to boycott something that you don't like already. Like, I never drank Bud Light, so it's easy to, I'm not going to drink any Bud Light anymore. Well, as the NFL is showing, people do come back. They just give it a little time and people come back to it anyway, unless you don't like it. If that makes sense.
Right. So, switching gears to maybe I'll call it politics, but how about the sex tapes scandals? We had 2. Do you remember them?
Well, yeah, the most recent one where you had the guy naked. I'm trying to keep this a little PG-13 here. You had the gentleman in the rear of the Senate chamber. I said rear. And they never, I don't know if they actually released the name of the other person, the person not seen. Now, did you watch the video? I have not.
I've seen a little clip of it, and that was disgusting and enough to look at.
And it's wrong, like the Senate chamber. So, and since then, that person has been let go. The staffer has been let go. It wasn't a senator. Kind of surprising. It probably has happened before, but we didn't have video cameras. But the other person, I don't know if that's ever come out of who that is.
No, I haven't seen anybody identify him, but he was face down. So then there was Representative Boebert.
Yes, Bobert, who was having inappropriate actions in a movie theater. Or was it a play? It was a movie.
It was a play, I
It was a
think.
play.
But she
And
was groping him, and he was groping her.
it was like they were teenagers.
And she was vaping, and a
Ugh.
pregnant woman asked her to stop, and she basically told her to bug off. And
Just not a very good picture of what our representatives should be in that case. And then she was like loud and obnoxious even when she left. Politics is getting to be a little more strange. And with video cameras on everyone that has them, you got to be very careful nowadays.
Yeah, but in the case of the other one, with the two dudes, they taped it intentionally.
Right. And the one guy, he's a comedian as well. The guy who they actually showed. And he's like, oh, but did you see he blamed it on the Republicans after all that? Like, okay.
Why not?
Why not? It'll probably work. Yeah, so that was what was the other the thing that was floating around? It was like the balloon. Do you
the
remember
Chinese balloon.
The Chinese balloon. Yeah, like, duh. Like, that was a big story that is trying to disappear, and we didn't shoot it down.
I mean, Arden, how does this happen? That we have a foreign body going, in our airspace that we know is coming from China.
Not even in just our airspace. The entire length of America. It flew over, and we wouldn't shoot it down because they were worried that it could hurt somebody on the ground. Like when it was in the Midwest, there's a lot of empty space, mostly owned by Bill Gates. He's got the largest landmass out there. And so like they easily could have just they didn't even have to shoot it with a missile. They could have just like knocked it into it. I don't know. I mean, we don't need supersonic jets to be able to knock down a balloon. You're going to put a prop plane up there and knock it over.
What I just think it's weird because now it's like nothing to see there. No explanations.
No
but
big deal.
hey, So one of the last stories that I read up on was a story that we covered pretty heavily. Do you remember that?
Which one didn't we?
It included the New York City Rat Czar.
Oh, yes, the Rat Czar and our good friend. This is a special shout out to Mr. N. Mr. N, you were probably mentioned more with your annoying little bugs than anybody else. Remember those? What were they called? The lantern flies.
The lantern flies, the red lantern
lantern flies that I couldn't even kill when I came across them.
It was a phenomenon that actually occurred. The whole eastern seaboard was infested with these things, and I found it funny that the news media conveyed that you literally were supposed to crush them and kill them.
Right.
Which is a little unusual for them to tell you what to do.
It's kind of like snakeheads, the fish. If you catch them, you're not allowed to release them. You have to kill them. But they don't really pay you for them, though. So that was pretty interesting. So any other funny news, silly news, crazy news that you could think of that happened? Anything personal?
Well,
not too personal, because we got to keep this a little real.
I think that it was 2023 was a decent year, certainly better than the COVID years.
Yes,
and I'm looking forward to 2024, and Arden and I are going to be tweaking this podcast. Yep. So we look forward to talking with you next week.
And do you remember how to get in touch with us? I'd like to put Abigail on the spot.
We are crotchetyoldmen@gmail.com.
Nice. We are crotchetyoldmen@gmail.com. Want to also quickly thank everyone on X/Twitter. That was another news thing. Who reached out to us saying, Happy New Year. There was too many to name, so I'm not going to name anybody. How about that? Is that rude?
No.
Okay. And I just want to thank. There was a couple questions that did come up that I did want to mention. I'm actually reading them. So, according to this one gentleman, he actually said that why are there 12 months in the year with all different days? He said it is theoretically possible that you could have a 13th month where every month has 28 days, and the first of the month would be a Monday, and the last day would be a Sunday of every single month. Why do we not do that? That was a question that was on there.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, I actually don't have an answer for that. That was just something I read from one of our people. And then there was, hold on, I'm going to see if I could read another one real fast because we got a bunch. Yeah, we'll just go with that one. I kind of like it. So I would like to wish everyone else who's out there a safe and fun and enjoyable and crotchety new year. And feel free, reach out to us if you want to be on the show. We would love to have you. And we like meeting people. We're starting to do that. But we are crotchetyoldman.com. We are crotchetyoldman.com.